lean into what makes you different, not what makes you the same as everybody else.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
I'm having a fantastic day, Lindsay, because it's a bonus round. First of all, I love podcast days. But this time we get to do it in person, live and in color, which I love. The only thing better is if our guest was with us in this room. Although I gotta say, I don't know that I'd want anyone else to be in this setup. Like, we are sitting in a hotel room in Nashville podcasting with the most ridiculous setup, but it doesn't matter, right? Because we're going to do this thing and it's going to be amazing. But yeah, I'm doing really, really well. And I'm super pumped, Lindsay, to introduce Julie Webb, who is our guest today. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And maybe I don't need to be right there in your hotel room, but maybe if we were going out on the town later in Nashville, that would be fun.
Heck yeah, man. That would be amazing. That would be fantastic.
You know, it's my first time in Nashville, and we went to Broadway last night just to walk around. And for some reason in my head, I had like Tootsie's was like a big space that had like, I'm describing what's in my head, had like cowboy hats hanging from the ceiling, but was like nice floor, like almost like Footloose-esque. And that's just not what Tootsie's was. And I don't want to say I was disappointed, but I was like so shocked that it was such a small little narrow building that was so vertical. So it's been a fun time in Nashville so far.
Well, I'm sure you heard some raw talent, beautiful talent while you were there. Hopefully that didn't disappoint.
No, we did. It's just different. I think when you see things online or photographs of things, you see it one way, and then when you're actually there experiencing it, it's completely different, isn't it? But
yes.
Yeah, Nashville's an amazing town. There's no two ways around that. And if you haven't heard good music here, like, you're not trying hard enough. That's the reality.
Agreed. Yeah. I was just there last summer with a good girlfriend of mine, and we saw Alanis Morissette, which was super exciting, as well as, you know, the trip down Broadway to see all of the folks performing in the bars there.
Fun. I can't imagine it in warm weather, how like bustling
hot.
And well, yeah, I guess not hot weather. Like, I wouldn't want to come in August, but I wonder in like May, if it would, like, nice weather, everything's outdoor, the rooftops are all open, I can see it being a really fun spot. So I'll definitely be back, that's for sure.
Yeah, you need to go back.
Well, Julie, I am so excited to have you on. We've had a couple of guests on to talk about female empowerment, and I got to say, it's one of our favorite topics to talk about, especially being in a male-dominated industry and being a mother-daughter duo who does their own podcast together. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do. It's just in the industry, I believe you said, but, you know, what you do.
Yeah, mostly just in the industry. But as I was sharing before we hit record, you know, I'm almost a year into my business, and having grown up in the insurance industry, I knew it was very male dominated, and that there were more spaces for women to step into leadership. But as I've been running my business, I'm finding that we're not alone. And so, you know, all areas of the financial services sector need more women in leadership, in my humble opinion. But I love this industry. And so that's where I spend most of my time. And I'm at the core of what I do. I'm just a really big believer that the more you get to know yourself, the more self-aware you are, the better leader you are. And so what I love to do in my work is just really help women get clear on who they are, what their values are, and how those values can help them make decisions, how they show up in leadership, remind them of the unique experiences that they have and how that's what makes them different. And that's a good thing. And then I also talk a lot about energy and how do you protect your energy in this fast-paced, high-stress industry. And then also, how do you project it? So what is the energy that you bring into a room and also leave in a room?
Yeah, I love that. So, being 1 year into your business is something. Like I celebrated 4 years in February, which is a huge, huge thing. Like it really is. Tell me,
Congrats.
and I know my own story, obviously, but everybody's got a story, and
Yeah.
betting on yourself is a big deal. It truly is. So tell me what got you, like what your career was to that point, and what made you make the leap into creating your own business and becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. And when I went to college, I wanted to go to the big city. So I went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which
One of
is
my
not
favorite
exact.
cities, by the way. Yeah, absolutely one of my favorite cities. Yeah.
Yes, go Steelers. It's a great city. It's not New York or Philadelphia or anything like that, but I went to school for business and I wanted to work for a nonprofit and save the world, make a difference. And then I realized that I couldn't pay back my student loan debt on a nonprofit salary, and I panicked.
Yeah.
And so my senior year, I went to the University of Pittsburgh and I visited with any recruiter who came on that campus. And as luck would have it, I met a recruiter from Geico Insurance.
Mm.
And she was selling, and she was doing a good job of it, a leadership development program at Geico. And I thought, well, I never saw myself in insurance, but I've been a leader in college and high school. Surely I can transfer some of those skills to the corporate world. And so I took a job with Geico Insurance. And, from there, I worked for a large agency network, Keystone Insurers Group,
Mm-hmm.
which was really a masterclass in the independent agency world after having spent 7 years working for a direct personal insurance writer. And so really enjoyed my time at Keystone. And towards the end of my time at Keystone, I was just getting this itch to put to practice what I was helping agents do. And that was, leading and running their agencies. And I was approached by a community bank here in Pennsylvania, and they were looking to start an insurance agency and asked me if I would start one for them.
Mm.
And so in March of 2020, and I always say yes, that March, I quit my job and started an agency from scratch for a community bank here. And, looking back, hindsight's 2020, and you can always see the silver linings after you put some time between that moment and now. It was a great decision. I loved building a team, building the agency, building a client base, partnering with the bank that we were a part of. It was just top to bottom, a great experience. But just like I had that itch at the end of my time at Keystone, I was just getting this restlessness about women in our industry and just the desire to do more. And I thought, I can control what I'm doing here in my little agency. And most of my team, in fact, when I left, all but one were female. But I wanted to have a bigger impact, and I wanted to share what we had built at our agency with the larger industry. And so, I was always just like, I was the one running the employee resource group for women at the bank. And I was the one starting the women's networking group. And I volunteered with Girl Scouts and Girls on the Run and you name it. And I was like, you know what? It's just time to go all in and share what I've learned through my unique experience. And claim my spot in the industry, I guess, pun intended.
Yeah, I totally get it. Totally get it.
Well, first of all, absolutely love Girls on the Run.
Yeah.
I was a
Yes.
Gamma Phi Beta in college, so that was our philanthropy. So Girls on the Run is close to my heart. But also, I super, super relate about working for an agency network and getting a master class. I just joined my mom's company about a month and a half ago and came from an agency network. And I've been telling everyone it was an amazing experience. It was a masterclass because you get to learn we had like an internal brokerage placement team. So I
Yeah.
got to learn a lot of what an actual agency suffers with. I got to work with our agencies on things that were challenging them, technology solutions, market solutions, and I got to work with our carriers and kind of be that front line of defense. Should this agency actually get a subcode, or should I appoint them or should I not? So it was a really good masterclass. I love how you pointed that out because I've been screaming that from the mountaintops for about 6 months now.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many choices now when it comes to agency networks. And clearly, like I drank the Kool-Aid, I'm a firm believer in um, linking up with the right network for your agency because it's all about just amplifying what you can do, right? It's not about giving up your independence. It's just about being able to do more for your team and for your clients. And yeah, it was a great experience to be able to deliver that to agents in the independent world.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me, my background, I was in a technology company first, and talk about male dominated. Like the only
Yeah.
thing more male dominated might have been construction or whatever. But I feel like my entire career has been in male dominated. But the reality is I've forged my way. Like I think
Yeah.
that there's a way to do that, but it is a different journey. There's no two ways around that. And in my opinion, what my generation sees as that journey and what Lindsay's generation sees as that journey are very different, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that it is interesting, and it's a personal journey for everyone. So I guess I'd love to hear, since you're focused on female leadership, what is your thought process on that? And what is your advice to women that maybe are Lindsay's age and they're trying to achieve a leadership role? What advice do you give them, or anyone, even my age? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can't be in insurance without loving an acronym, right?
Heck yeah,
and so,
man.
and so as I was designing my, favorite workshop that I like to give to women, the name I landed on was See Your Signature Style. And C is an acronym. So it stands for self, experience, and energy. And so what I would tell women and what I tell women in this workshop, or what I help them see, is just getting really clear on values. And what is it that you, as, a young leader in this industry, what is it that you value? And how can that help you make the right decision for you? Not the decision that somebody else wants you to make, but the decision for you, right? The other thing that I love to do with women, and whether you're 25, 35, 45, 55, is take a time period and look back. And I do this through a milestone map. And I just say, like, plot 6 to 10 of your highs and lows. So 6 to 10 total. And then look back on it and see what the common thread is. See, what the type of person you are, how that person shows up through those experiences. And it's really impactful when you do that. Have either of you ever done that?
I have not. No.
You have to come to one of my workshops.
I think I might. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it as you said that, and I think naturally, I've done a talk about my journey to entrepreneurship, and in order
Yeah.
to do that, I think I did that, but I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure I looked at it the same way you just described it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think what women typically find from that experience is that they're stronger than they think, right? So you're faced with adversity, and you all heard the saying, we can't control what happens to us, but it's how we respond, right? And so what we find is that when we're faced with adversity, we can overcome that, and oftentimes we're stronger for it, right? So that's usually a thread that comes out, or maybe it's that I've always been a helper, and so how can that show up in my leadership? So long story short, I think what I would say to women, and what I do say to women, is, lean into what makes you different, not what makes you the same as everybody else, because what we need are more diverse leaders in our industry and other industries to make our businesses more successful. You know, it's not what makes you the same that makes you successful. It's what makes you different. And that's not always easy, right? Like, I don't know. What do you think about that, Lindsay?
Yeah, we had recently Vonda Copeland, who was just named as one of the first women in over 50 years, was
Something
it?
like that for PIA National, yeah.
So she was just named to their national PIA national board, and she was telling us that when it was time to take their picture, she was so proud of being a woman who was, on the board, that she packed herself a blue suit to match the boys. And the morning of, she woke up and she was like, actually, no. And she either brought a different one or went out and bought a pink suit. And so their national board photos are her in a pink suit. And I love that. I completely agree that you should be leaning into the ways that you stand out. I actually, I'm young. I'm 25. I'm new in the industry. That's not a secret. Everybody always talks about it. But I enjoy telling people that, because I think, yeah, I'm 25 and look at how I handle myself. I'm, talking to this random person in a crowd, and some people say, oh, you're young, you don't know anything. And sure, I don't know anything, but I know how to ask questions and I know how to learn and I know how to adapt. And I think those are all incredibly valuable skills to know as a young person. So
yeah,
I completely agree that lean into what's different.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because everybody has a different journey. There's no question about it. And mine, I actually view as three distinct sections. And so I had a period of time that I stayed home with my children for a very long time, actually. And re-entering the workforce changes your own perception of yourself and what you can bring to the table. And for the longest time, I wouldn't talk about my pause or my break. It's like it didn't happen, and I didn't bring that there was any value to that. I just hoped people didn't notice it or didn't ask me or didn't whatever. And it wasn't until I was about 5 years into my next period of time that I would talk about the fact that I wasn't in the workforce significantly for a period. And how different is it? She's like, I'm going to embrace that I'm young and talk about the things. And I was like, oh goodness, please don't ask me about these 12 years that I wasn't working. And it's not funny, but it's an interesting dynamic. And I think it's something we should all be introspective about.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's progress too, and progress should be celebrated. I love that, the next generation is okay with that break, right?
Yeah.
And let's face it, it wasn't a break.
No, it really wasn't. But what's hilarious though is, recognizing that there's so much value. Like, I actually think that made me a better leader than the average person, but I couldn't embrace it at the time, because all I thought is I'm not as marketable as the other people that have all this experience, which is comical at this point. Like, that's absolutely comical. But I wish I had someone like you coaching me to say, hang on a minute, that's not the only way to see this, And so, you're right. I probably should come to your workshop. How about
that? We'll meet up in person. We were just talking about how, you meet people virtually, and then it's always just great to be with them in person.
Yeah.
We'll do it at Tootsie's in Nashville.
How about that?
Hey, I'm there for it. Yeah.
So what's been the response of the women that you've worked with, and what is that engagement? I'd love to understand what that engagement looks like, and what does success look like? Like, tell me about all that.
Yeah. So I work with women in agencies as well as carriers, right? And I just did this great half-day workshop where we went through the See Your Signature style with a carrier. And some of the feedback I got at the end was that was like executive coaching in disguise. And I took that as like a major compliment, because, I have worked with an executive coach in the past, and she really is the person that helped me get really clear on my values and, how I can live a more aligned life. And that's really what I'm trying to get across and make more accessible to more women, right? Because I really believe that women, we sometimes don't even know like what resources are out there. That's number one, right? We don't know what resources are out there. And then two, we're hesitant to invest in ourselves. And that's, a whole conversation for another day. But so I want to change that. I want to make resources accessible to women so that they can become the leaders that our businesses need. And that's really what success looks like to me, right? So yeah, I loved that feedback from that session. The other thing that I love doing is, for so long, I think women felt like if I made it to the table and I'm the only at the table, I'm boxing out because there's only one seat at the table and I've got it, right? And talk about progress. I love that we've made progress, that now more women are welcoming others to the table, right? And when I was leading our agency, I belonged to a group called My Network. And this was a group of women mastermind groups. And it was amazing because sometimes as a leader, it can be lonely. And you sometimes think, and especially for me, like I had come from the agency network world where it's very collaborative, right? And then I left, I started this agency. It was just me and it was COVID. And I thought, what have I done?
Yeah.
And so, I found my people, if you will, through this My Network group. And now it's sort of come full circle because I'm facilitating some of those groups. And, when you ask me what success looks like, it's when I get women at that table to say like, yes, I'm worth the investment. Yes, it's worth my time to show up. And just, again, the collaboration that happens, the learning, it's almost like you can't afford not to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So bringing women together, giving them the resources that they need. And there's a real ROI there too. So it's not just the feel goods, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ROI is that then more women get promoted. They become better leaders, and then, productivity increases, efficiency increases, profit increases.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox, but I could go on and on.
It's funny though, that dynamic. I remember, so I told you, I came up in the technology world and there were no people that looked like me. Like after you got to a certain level, everybody was male and they were much older than me as well. So I was a young professional at the time. And so I had like two strikes against me. I'm the wrong sex and I'm way younger than everybody else. And that whole box out thing, once you get there, it is tough to say, hey, I'm going to open and invite others because that might mean I'm not going to be there, which is really terrible. But I love the expansion of the female-led conferences that are happening in our industry today. All of those things are really, really, they're taking a precedent and they're setting a different tone, which is super fantastic. So I've also been, honored enough to be able to be asked to speak at some of those and share it. But the reality is, for me, it was tough to imagine myself in a position because nobody looked like me. Nobody approached things like me. Nobody, they just had different experiences. And I don't think men feel that box out the same way that women do. And it's not a bad thing. It's just something we have to be aware of because my goodness, we should be rooting for each other and not rooting against each other. And that's the best way I've actually heard it discussed without sounding like you have a chip on your shoulder, because it's not that. It's just the nature of the situation. So I love that. That's something I would love to see that change, because I will tell you, I'm the first one to celebrate other smart women that are doing amazing things. But it was hard when I was younger because you're afraid, right?
Yeah. It's just really embracing this like abundance mindset,
Yes.
which, I even struggle with sometimes myself, but there is enough to go around, right?
100%. 100%.
It's funny. So I do a lot of work. Well, it's not funny, but it's interesting, I should say. I do a lot of work on executive presence. And, I have this slide in my workshops that says, it's really like walking a tightrope for women sometimes, right? So I love like the comment you made about the blue suits. So I'll often have women like close their eyes and I'll say, okay, when you hear the words executive presence, what do you think of? And then I pull up this picture of, it's men and women, but they're all in blue suits and they're standing with their arms crossed. Yep. And everyone's like, how did you know? Mm-hmm. And then, a couple minutes later, we'll talk about, have you ever been told you're too much of something or not enough of something, right? Like too opinionated or doesn't speak up enough, or, the gender and also the age. Have you ever been told you're too old or too young? And get this, there was a study done that interviewed people and they asked them what the right age was for a woman to have like, just the most like executive presence. And the participants gave this really generous window of 39 to 42.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Whew, you better get it right, my friends. Yeah,
I know,
you better get it right.
I know. I'm like, are you kidding me? So yeah, it's
what was the range? I'm just curious. What was the range for men?
You know what? They didn't include it. I don't even know if they did a study for men.
Interesting. Because of course, why would they need to? It's right. Hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said something super interesting in the beginning, and I'd love to hear what you're saying about this, because the energy you bring into the room and the energy that you embrace, I think is what you said. Maybe those weren't the words.
Or leave behind. Yeah.
Leave behind. Yeah. So tell me how that is, because I think you have to be super self-aware to know what that is. And it reminds me of the book, The Energy Bus. I don't know if that was what you were intending, but that's actually what you put in my mind when you said that. Tell me a little bit about that and how you coach people to think about that in a different way.
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked that. So when I talk about energy, I really talk about how do we protect our energy, right? Mm-hmm. Because whether we think we can hide it or not, people see through it, right?
Sure.
And so there's these two sisters, Nagoski is their last name, and they wrote a book all about how to finish the stress cycle, essentially. And so I love to share some of the pieces from their book, just, as humans, like stress used to be running from a bear. And when we got away from the bear, we knew we were okay. And so like we calmed down. But now stress is our kids, our family, our work, a traffic jam, and sometimes you don't want to like escape those things forever. And so they talk a lot about like, how do you complete that stress cycle so that, you can show up with the energy that you want. So we talk a lot about protecting your energy. But then as far as the energy you want to project, a lot of it comes from feedback, right? From your peers, from people that you trust, from, being the person that when you walk in the room, you feel approachable, right? Like people feel like they can come up to you and have a conversation. And sometimes it's not sometimes, all the times it's body language, right?
Always, yes.
I did this earlier for the executive presence, crossing my arms. It's comfortable to stand like this, but I look much more approachable when my arms are open, right?
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's talking about in those in-person environments, what does your body language say? When you're talking to someone like this on Zoom, what are you projecting, right? Even just when you're on the phone, I shared with you that I started my insurance career at Geico Insurance. It was a call center.
Oh,
and
wow.
We had mirrors at our desks because when you're smiling, you sound different than when you're not smiling, right?
It's true.
You definitely do. No question.
Yeah. And so some of it, I say it's simple things, but some of those things are habits that are hard to break. So we talk a lot about that and just, making sure that we're not only protecting our energy, but I guess it's protecting it more. The answer doesn't always have to be yes, right?
Boy.
So, and I have a podcast with my girlfriend called Take It Off, and we were just talking about this, and it's not like risque or anything like that. I should clarify. It's all about just taking off like expectations that we put on ourselves and that women place on us, right? But we were just talking about this and how we have to just be really careful about, overextending ourselves as women, and that, as an entrepreneur, I maybe have a little bit more control over my schedule and can do that. But even as a woman in a corporate insurance job, if you're traveling all week and then, someone asks you to meet with them the next morning, is that the only time that has to happen? Or could it be pushed back so that you can have time to recharge your energy? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, unfortunately, that makes very big sense. Yes. I mean, I'm sitting next to my daughter who's probably thinking to herself, yeah, Mom, are you listening to this? Are you listening to what she's saying? Tell me you're please listening.
Someone turn the volume up.
I think I'm the one in the back that people need to turn turn it up for. So I fully get it. Like, I think protecting your energy is something we're not very good. We're not wired to do. I think we as females are wired to give energy to, and that's a really big stereotype, but in general, you're about giving and putting yourself absolutely last. And the problem is you can't give if you've not poured into yourself. Like, that's the reality. So yes, I hear you loud and clear. Wow. You are, if anyone's listening to this, I think this was not intentional, but I think Julie has sold me on the fact that I need to go to her because it's a thing. Like, when you're 4 years into starting your own business and you're guilty of so many of the things you're talking about, but you also want to do for people. Like, I get great energy from helping others. You saw the same thing. Like, I've learned all this stuff. I want to give it. Well, I feel the same way. I've learned all these things, and I want as many people as possible to have access to the right information to make sound business and financial decisions for their agency, same way you do. But saying no is super hard for someone who's wired like that. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. And I don't know if you find this in your work, but I've had to learn just in my short year as an entrepreneur to turn it off because like you said, like I'm fortunate that I love what I'm doing. And so often, like, I just keep going. And it's like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, you need to stop.
Yeah, I'm still working on that, Julie. I'm definitely still working on that. But I think when you love it, it's hard. It's really hard. So anyway, I think the work you're doing is amazing. There's a lot of people out there that need that reminder and need that network of people that are supporting that to happen. So if people want to reach out to you and find out more, Julie, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah. So I love LinkedIn. I love to connect with folks there. That's how we connected. So you can find me on LinkedIn. And then, so I'm an older millennial, but Gen Z, Lindsay, you can back me up, is telling me that like Instagram is the place to be. So I'm somewhat of a newbie on Instagram, but the name of my company is JMW Collective. And on Instagram, do you call it a handle, Lindsay? Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Okay. It's jmw.collective. So I'd love to connect with you either on LinkedIn or on Instagram.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Julie. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful to chat with both of you. And I love this mother-daughter dynamic that you have. It's really special. So hold on to that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Julie.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.